Hello everybody and welcome back to another CB Show Tunes tutorial. Now today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be basically taking a slow step on how to make a strategy style movement system by basically using your mouse to click around the map and then of course select characters and all and then move those characters around the map similar to this demonstration right here. Let me go and put it in full view so you guys can see what we're doing here. So we're going to be making this right here. It's going to be a very simple setup. Uh, I did make a tutorial not too long ago on how to set up a strategy movement style. It had some issues and all, so I decided to go ahead and make a new one with a little bit of better mechanics. Now we will be going slowly through this, so we'll have multiple parts to this individual's, I guess you could call it series or process. That way, we're not going to be overrunning people with a lot of information that they can't really hold on to. Also, I will be posting these scripts inside the comment section below. The last script on the last part that we're going to be doing will, of course, hold all the scripts that are completed. But if you want to follow along, then that'd be great as well. Okay, so I'm going to go and press play to get out of there. And now we're going to discuss what you're going to need to start off. So as you can see, we have what you call a terrain. This is just a simple 3D terrain. You can easily get it by simply pressing new on the hierarchy or right clicking on the hierarchy, going over to 3D object and then selecting terrain. It's very simple to do. Of course, I decorated the terrain, and I believe I got a tutorial out there on decorating the terrain and all, making it look good and all. But, you know, if you don't know how to do that, then just leave a comment in the comment section below. I'll be happy to show you guys how. Okay, so to set up the movement system for our character, we're going to need to create a nav mesh. Now, if you don't know what a nav mesh is, it pretty much allows us to make our character capable of traveling over certain terrain. So think of it as navigation mesh. Okay, so to get this navigation menu over here, you just need to come over here to Windows, select that, roll down to the bottom, and then select navigation. So if you didn't catch that before, go over to Windows, down to navigation, select navigation. Once you got that done, make sure that you have your terrain inside the inspector set as static. That way we can actually make it work. That's one thing that you will need to know about navigation meshes is that they have to work off of static meshes. And of course, they will go around certain objects that are set as static as well. So if I set up, say for instance, a building, and then it's marked it as static, then of course this navigation system would go around that building. Also keep in mind that whatever you bake, say for instance the train, if you notice this little bake tab, whatever we bake is what our character can walk on. So if we didn't bake our building, it would automatically treat it as an obstacle instead of an actual train. So if it's a train, then make sure that you bake it. Okay, so we're going to hit bake, and it's going to bake our navigation mesh. So as you can see, it's taking its time. And it will show a blue mark over the area if it's been made, okay? And that's all the area that you can walk on. Now there's all forms of spiffy things you can mess with over here, changing the heights and all and angles that your character can walk on. So yeah, go and play around with those if you got like a very interesting scene. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to need to do, of course, is have a player. Now the player right here is just a simple 3D model that I made. It has the basic animation components, walk, idle, run, and interact. You don't need the interact for this tutorial. We're just going to be working with the walk, run, and idle, and I'll show you how to set that up as well. So anyway, for the player, make sure that you have it dragged into the scene. So we'll go over here, drag a player into the scene. Okay. And there he is, just a simple player. Now make sure to go back over to the inspector, and once you're there, you're going to notice that we have an animator on this. If you don't have an animator on this, then you will not be able to actually put animations on it. Now, if you created this yourself by using Blender, or you downloaded it from an FBX file, stuff like that, then it should automatically come with that. If you don't have it, simply go over to Add Component, type in Animator. Now keep in mind if it doesn't have it, then it most likely cannot animate because it doesn't have a skeleton rig. But that's a whole new story, and we're going to get carried away doing that. So anyway, once you got your animator set up, we're going to drag our animation controller on there. And of course, to get that, go over to your project panel, right click, go over to create, and then select animator controller. Go ahead and name it what you want to name it. I called it player anim. Okay, so with our animations, make sure that you drag your animations into this by simply selecting your player, or if you already have your animations over here, if you're using something like Mixamo. And what you're going to do is you're simply going to select your animations and make sure that they're set to loop time loop pose. Except if it's a single animation, in which case you just want to loop pose. And to get that option, simply select that, and then deselect. And hit apply. Okay, so to talk about this is going to seem a little complicated for those that have not done this before. I have plenty of tutorials on how to do this as well. So yeah, just take a look at those if you are really confused at this. Okay, so we have three parameters: is idle, is run, and interact. Like I said, you don't need this one for this tutorial, so we're just going to be working with is idle and is run. So starting off, we want idle as our set layer default. This allows us to say this is the beginning. Next, we're going to go over to walk. So for walking, we got to think, how do we want to go to walk, right? So we only have two variables called is idle and is run. So to go to walk, we're going to set is idle is equal to false and is run is equal to false because we're not running, right? And we're also going to take has exit time off. This allows us to be able to switch seamlessly without it finishing up the previous animation. Okay, heading back to idle, we just want to make one variable called is idle is equal to true. That way, whenever we're idle or we're not moving, then it immediately moves back over to is idle. Also take off has exit time. Now, for the run, we're going to do the same process, except we are running. So we're going to set is run is equal to true. And make sure that has exit time is off as well. And going back to idle, we're going to do the same process as walk. We're going to say is idle is equal to true. And of course, has exit time is false. And of course, we're going to do the same process going from walk to run. So for walk to run, it's going to be is run is equal to true, and is idle is equal to false. And the same thing with run to walk, except opposite, of course, is run is equal to false, is idle is equal to false, and has exit time is equal to false. Pretty much everything's equal to false. You know how it is. Okay, so since we got the animation controller covered, we're now going to go into a more interesting part. So let's head over to our scene. Now for our character, we're going to add a component. We need to add a capsule collider, and we need to adjust the capsule collider. Now my character is a little bit strange. It's taller than the normal characters. It's roughly at a 1.5 and a height of 3, as you could see. Most characters are going to only be like change the center to 1 on the y-axis and then 2 on the height value. But just experiment, just make sure that the green item is lying on the ground. And of course, however high you want it to go, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so once you got your capsule collider selected, we're going to go over here and we're going to add a rigid body. Now underneath the rigid body, you're going to go freeze constraints. Now, if you don't know what this means, this basically allows us to say we don't want to fall over without, our character being controlled by the script. So say for instance, we wanted to flip with our script, we could do that. but it's not going to automatically do that if we run into something or trip, stuff like that. Okay, and the last thing that we're going to add on our character is what we call a Navmesh agent. Now, a Navmesh agent allows our character to actually move on our navigation mesh. So if you notice, it automatically puts the navigation agent on the bottom of the character, which is perfect because that's what we want. Now, we're not going to mess with it a lot over here. We are going to change the angular speed to about 480, mainly because it is better than dealing with, you know, tiny turns. The higher your angular speed is, the faster your character will rotate. There are some issues with that, but you'll learn them eventually. Okay, we're not going to we're not going to mess with anything else right here. And now we're going to go over to our scripts folder. Now to create a scripts folder, go over to your assets main folder, right click, and then create a new folder called scripts. Now, inside this tutorial, we're going to be working with two individual scripts. One's going to be called mouse control and one's going to be called player control. Both are going to be C#. So to create these scripts, go over here, right click, and create C#. Now you can call them whatever you want to call them. For the purpose of this tutorial, I would advise naming them this, or you could just name them whatever. Just make sure that you're on the right script when we actually switch. Okay, so starting off, I believe we're going to go ahead and do mouse control script first. Okay, so this controls our character from the point of our camera. So we're going to select our camera and go ahead and take a look at where it is. So I'm going to go over to our game mode, and there we go. So our camera is sitting right above the character. It's angled at about 70, and it's 15 high, okay? Now, we didn't add any movement to this camera, so we're not going to be like moving forward or backwards or left or right, stuff like that. But basically, we're going to be using our camera as our point for our ray cast. And if you don't know what that is, we'll get into that inside the script. Make sure that you also have your mouse controller script on your camera. So go ahead and drag it onto your camera. Okay, so the first value that we're going to be pulling up is raycast hit, and this is going to be called hit. This allows us to say whenever our raycast hits something, then that means that it hit something, right? So we're going to call that value hit. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a public bool called target, which is going to be equal to false. So target just means that we have something selected or we don't have something selected. I had to come up with this function because I was trying to figure out a way of deselecting everything at once without, having any issues. Because I had a large amount of issues when I actually had this as a game object. So I basically just changed this to an individual Boolean called target. And of course, I created a public vector3 called new position. You will need this public. Mainly because we're going to be using this inside a different script, so just keep that in mind. Okay, you don't need the void start function for this, so don't worry about that. Okay, under the void update function, we're going to create an array called ray, and it's going to be equal to camera.main screen point array, and inside this we're going to put input.mouse position. Now make sure that you have this ray as a lowercase. It cannot be uppercase, otherwise Unity's going to think you're just calling this ray twice. So the same thing, which you don't want. And basically what this really complicated script is saying right here is that whatever our camera is looking at and wherever our mouse position is, that's where the ray's point is going to be. I know it seems like a lot, but yeah, that's all it's saying. Okay, underneath this, we're going to say if physics.raycast, and then we're going to say call our ray function, so wherever our ray is, out, or comma space, out hit, so wherever it hits, comma, to the point of 1000. So basically we're saying our ray is equal to the length of the ray and where it hit. Now keep in mind that arraycast is part of the physics function, so uh, just make sure to add physics whenever you're adding raycast right there. Okay, so this tells us where this hit point is going. So if input.getMouseButton down 0, so if we're left clicking, that's what the 0 stands for, and then hit, which of course is where we hit, dot transform dot tag, so it grabs whatever we're hitting and it grabs its tag. If it's equal to player, then target is equal to true. So now we have selected a target. And we're going to say hit.transform.getComponent player controller. So that's going to be the script we're going to be calling. If you didn't create the script earlier, go ahead and create that script. You don't need anything in it just yet. And then you're going to just put this right here, our two parentheses, dot is selected is equal to true. Now this right here is going to end up red because you do not have this inside your player controller script yet. But don't worry about that. We will get to that once we get to the next script. Next, we're going to say else if. I'm not going to say this entire phrase again, but basically, else if we left click, then target is equal to false. So what we're saying is if we hit a player, then it's going to do this. If we hit anything else, then it's going to do that. Now this of course is where you're going to be adding as much stuff as you want. So if you want to hit a building, make sure that you add an else if right here and then do that. But that'll be part of a different tutorial and everything. Okay, so at the way bottom, we're going to say if we right click, which of course is the same function as left clicking except we put a 1, and then hit.transform.tag is equal to ground. So basically if we hit the ground, the new position is equal to hit point. So wherever our hit point is, that's going to be equal to our new position. And this, I'll show you what we're talking about once we get over to player controller. Okay, so for our player controller, make sure that you did drag that script onto the player. Let me go and close that. Yeah, there we go. So make sure that you did drag that script onto the player controller. You're not going to see all these variables right now. And of course, you will be seeing a red line on the bottom of the screen because we did not create that Boolean value. But let's go and do that. So hop over here into your player controller script. And we're going to go to the way top. Okay, so you're going to make sure that you're using UnityEngine.ai. This allows us to be able to access the navigation system for Unity. And of course, we're going to set up a couple variables. So inside the script, we're going to say private mouse control is going to be equal to MC. So we're going to make our reference for mouse control MC. We're going to create a public float called walk speed, run speed, walk range, and stopping distance. We're going to create a public bool called is selected and is run. Now that error should disappear. If it doesn't disappear, then just click on it and click clear. Okay. We're also going to create a vector3 called new position. And we're going to create an animator called anim. Okay. Now keep in mind these second names right here, they're just references to these right here. Okay, and lastly, we're going to create a nav mesh agent called nim. Now this is very important. You have to have this right here to have this right here. Okay. All right. Underneath the void start function, we're going to say nim is equal to get component nav mesh agent. So we're going to be grabbing our reference there. MC is equal to camera.main get component mouse control. We're grabbing our reference there. Anim is equal to get component animator. We're grabbing our reference there. Nim.stopping distance is equal to stopping distance. So this allows us to say on our navigation mesh agent, we're going to set our stopping distance by just using one variable. So instead of having to adjust two different variables or look through the entire navigation mesh agent's information and all. You could just change it from your script, which is so much easier. Okay, new position is equal to transform.position. That's a given, of course. Is selected is equal to false, and is run is equal to false. Okay, now this is going to be a lot of information right here, so just hold on to your horses as we go on this journey. Okay, underneath the void update function, you're going to create a float called distance, which is going to be equal to a vector3.distance. And the distance is going to judge between transform.position and new position. So what this big old statement is saying is that you're going to create a new float called distance, and it's going to say that it's going to be equal to the distance between your current position and the position that your mouse just selected. That's pretty much what it's saying. Later on, we will be actually creating a distance for an enemy. So instead of it just being a distance to say, okay, yeah, we're here to here, we're going to be making a distance for an enemy. Now we're going to say if mc.target is equal to false, then is selected is equal to false. That's basically saying our mouse control script is equal to, or our target inside our mouse control script is equal to false, then we're now not going to have anything selected. That way we don't have to worry about deselecting objects. Okay, new position is equal to mc.new position. This is going to be by itself. It doesn't need to be anything except for void update. Okay, if our players clicked. Now this is going to be a very fast part. So we're going to say if is selected and we get our left mouse button up, enum.setDestination new position. So now we're going to be moving to that position once our mouse goes up. Or basically we just click our mouse. Now here comes the fun part. We're going to be setting our animations. Now this would take the longest and everything, so yeah. If distance is less than stopping distance, enum.setBool is idle is equal to true. Okay. Else if distance is greater than stopping distance, enum.setBool is idle is equal to false. Next, we're going to say if input.get key up, key code R. So basically, whenever we press the R key, we're going to have this toggle. If is run, then is run is equal to false. enum.setBool is run false. enum.speed is equal to walk speed. Else is run is equal to true. enum.setBool is run true. enum.speed is equal to R. Basically saying we're going to be setting us to run or setting us to walk. Pretty simple. Okay. Outside of all this is selected, which is all this stuff right here, we're going to create else if you're not selected. So if you see an exclamation point, that means if not selected. Then you're going to put inside this almost the same function. So we're going to say if distance is greater than stopping distance. If is run, then is run is equal to true. enum.setBool is run. Just copy the top script, except make sure that if you're running, then is run is equal to true. And if you're not running, then is run is equal to false. Pretty much you're just saying that we don't want to stop our movement just because we stopped or we deselected our character. We want our character to continue moving till they reach the point. Else, enum.setBool is idle is equal to true. And this is going to be outside of the is selected function. So this is by itself. No, it's not. I lied, people. It's actually inside this right here. So all this is inside is selected. See, even I get confused. Okay, so go ahead and save both your scripts. You should be able to save this script now. And if it's still showing like yellow on the side of your screen, or you really don't see any results inside of Unity, make sure that you press attach to Unity and then stop the debugging process, and then you can head back over here. Okay, now to adjust this, we're going to basically take reference to our original player. So I set the walk speed to 10 and the run speed to 20. So I'm going to go and do that. And of course, I set the walk range to 20 and the stopping distance to 2. and we're not going to worry about is selected or is run. So now we're going to press play. Here we go. We're going to select our character. If we can select our character. Oh, that is one thing we forgot. Make sure to tag your character as player. Yes, that would have been a problem. Because if you take a look at this, our character is tagged as player. Okay, so now we're going to press play again. And here we go. So we're going to select our player. And there we go. So he moves to the position. Perfect. If we select both our players, there we go. Perfect. And then, of course, if we deselect them, we can select wherever and they won't move. Select them again, and there we go. And that's perfect. Okay. Now, I did notice a slight issue right there, but we'll get to that issue inside the next tutorial. Because this tutorial is sort of taking quite a bit of time. All right, I hope you guys had some fun watching this tutorial, and I hope you guys learned quite a bit. If you like this tutorial, please like it, subscribe, check out some other videos. Be prepared for part 2, of course, and I'll see you guys next time.